Hi there. I love conspiracy theories. It's a real window into how some people believe, how they evaluate evidence, how they see the world, what's their map of reality, and also, in many cases, just how wacky people can be. Let's define a conspiracy. I would say a conspiracy is two or more people who come together to plan and implement a secret enterprise. There are two views of history, conspiracy or cock-up. The conspiracy theory advocates that every disaster, failure or high-profile death, war or career advancement is the result of some dark global cabal, usually led by the CIA. The opposing view is that history has numerous blunders, omissions, errors and simple bad luck. People forget, are lazy or just stupid. Many of them are in high government positions, so the mistakes are critical. However, government departments are very reluctant to admit error, and so often they resort to cover-up, and this cover-up often leads to cries of conspiracy. So the cover-up is usually the worst part of the problem. During the White Watergate scandal, now that's a conspiracy that may not be a theory, an associate of the Clintons asked a journalist why he was so determined to turn over every rock. The journalist answered, "Because you have your foot firmly planted on every one of them." The cover-up in action. Cover-ups are an almost instinctive reaction by officials. If they admitted their mistakes, there wouldn't be so many crazy yet entertaining conspiracy theories. Dark forces. The conspiracy theorists have particular interest in the activities of the various intelligence agencies, SIS, Mossad, and especially the CIA, labelled by the Soviets as dark forces. Let's start off by saying right away that these agencies do engage in conspiracies. It's the nature of their work. If we look in history at World War II, let's have three examples. The classic World War II operation against the Norse Hydro at Utting was a conspiracy against the Nazi atomic project. The British SOE, Norwegian section, conspired to send teams of expatriate Norwegians and locals to sabotage the plant. However, although it's a conspiracy, it was what the SOE was authorised to do. It's what they were set up for. It was planned and actioned with input from appropriate authorities. Next, the Manhattan Project, developing the Allied atomic bomb. A massive, truly massive conspiracy where even the United States Vice President was kept in the dark. So it really was a conspiracy, and it was an effective one. Thirdly, we have the Soviet penetration of the Manhattan Project. Soviet intelligence, using traitors, managed to glean a lot of the technical information and save themselves years, maybe decades of research. And so that was a conspiracy against the Manhattan Project. Because the intelligence services are in the busy of covert operations, they seldom admit what they have done. Ideally, their activities are never discussed, even years later. In fact, it was only relatively recently that the British government admitted that SIS actually existed. This secrecy, which is essential to the very purpose of their role, breeds suspicion. In the world of the conspiracy theorists, the CIA is behind most of the major events and catastrophes. And if it wasn't the CIA, then it was the Mossad or SIS. It seems these theorists base their view of the CIA on Hollywood movies, where the agency is all-powerful, can obtain any information at the touch of a keyboard, and has teams of dark-suited assassins waiting to leap out of Chevy Suburbans with silenced weapons ready to kill anyone that the president, director or section chief doesn't like. The fact is, the CIA is a bureaucracy like any other. Government agencies are not known for super efficiency, as anyone who has ever had to deal with knows. A friend of mine who worked for the US government discussed these conspiracy theories with me and said, "Dennis, we're just not that good. It's like working for the post office." And as PJ O'Rourke said, the post office can't even deliver the mail correctly, and it's got the address right on it. The fact is that the intelligence services can't even get their main job of gathering information right. They miss such glaring events as the invasion of the Falklands, the opening of the Berlin Wall, and the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait. So the next time you hear some conspiracy theorist pointing the finger at the CIA, ask yourself, could the post office have done that? If not, then it's probably not the CIA either, and it was more likely a cock-up. Can individuals go off the reservation and engage in authorised activities? Certainly, and I'm sure it's happened in various places. To really understand the mind of the conspiracy theorists, there was a programme a few years ago on British television where a group of people who had various theories about what really happened on the 7/7 bombing terrorist attack, which was a conspiracy, obviously, what it was actually carried out by. Each of these conspiracy theorists had a different view and didn't accept the official explanation that a group of 4 suicide terrorists came to London, each selected a target and each detonated and killed numerous people. Each of these theorists had a different explanation. One said that it wasn't those guys. They never arrived in London at all and the train was delayed. Another said, yes, it was them, but they were proxies of the government, and so on. They all had these theories. They all got on really well together, even though they had opposing views, because they were all united against the official doctrine. The programme introduced them to various experts, but their information was dismissed, usually because they'd had some contact with a government entity, or they were connected to a university, or they'd liked a tweet that they didn't like, or whatever. They could find a reason to argue against them. But one guy in the group, his particular niche was the bomb that was placed on the bus in Russell Square, and he had researched on the internet the effect of explosives, and he was of the opinion that the amount of explosives that the terrorist was known to have carried in a backpack could not have caused the amount of damage we saw on that bus. So the programme took them to a quarry, and they got Sidney Alford, who is a renowned explosives expert, and he said they all agreed what explosive was used. I think it was TATP, and he mixed up a batch of it. He didn't do this on screen, but the young guy agreed, yeah, that's the stuff and that's the amount. And they placed it in the location, I think it was the upper deck at the rear of the bus, and got into safe cover and detonated. And the bus blew up exactly as happened on 7/7. It was an absolute replica. And the young guy, to his credit, agreed and admitted he was wrong. He said, yeah, I got it wrong. And immediately the others in the group turned on him as a heretic. And that is a big clue to the mindset of the conspiracy theorist. It's akin to almost a religious ideology, and you can't deviate from it. And it's not based actually on evidence, it's based on belief. And when a belief feels right internally. And this is quite normal. I mean, in many things we believe things for reasons that you can't really explain or quantify particularly clearly. It just feels right. It's a comfortable belief, maybe. I previously reviewed the book by Mick West, Down the Rabbit Hole, and he explains a lot about the psychology of the conspiracy theories, and that book is well worth a read. I'd refer you to that. So now we come to the book The Conspiracy Tourist by Dom Joly. Dom Joly used to present a TV comedy show where he did visual pranks mainly. In fact, one of his famous ones where he would appear with, you'd hear this very loud Nokia ringtone and he'd produce a massive phone and talk into it. It was very funny. In fact, I use a clip of that on lectures at the beginning to remind people to switch their phones off. The book supposedly discusses some noted conspiracies, but it's actually more about weird beliefs, such as the flat earth or the fact that the country of Finland doesn't actually exist. And when you go to Finland, all the people you meet are actually actors. So he really does examine a couple. For example, he mentions visiting Dallas and was, like many people, myself included, surprised just how short a range the distance from the depository to the place where the president was shot. It's quite a short distance, and but he just sums up the whole JFK shooting by saying that the Warren Commission determined that it wasn't a conspiracy. Well, anyone who's writing a book on the subject, and anyone who's claiming to have done any sort of research, really has to go a little bit further than that. And subsequent to the Warren Commission was the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which did determine, their second finding was that it was a conspiracy. And a lot of material came out then. Then another thing that we would posit is that 30 years ago, Congress passed a law saying that all US government entities who had documents pertaining to the JFK assassination had to release them in their entirety by a certain date. And I think there was a set of deadlines, and if I remember rightly, the final one was 2017. The CIA still has not released their cache of documents, despite the fact that President Trump demanded that they be released, and they just fronted it out and won't do it. To this day, they are breaking the law. Now, we've got to ask why. What are they hiding? If it's not a conspiracy, there's no conspiracy, and presumably then all those documents would support the fact that it was just Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone. They've got nothing to hide. So obviously there is something there that does prove a conspiracy, whatever that conspiracy is. And I don't know any more than anyone else on that subject who actually did it or why. It's a mystery. It really is a very good conspiracy. Dom Joly wears his politics on his sleeve and is quick to label people Brexiteers, GB News viewers, anti-vaxxers, etc. And on that latter, he would probably label me for noting that the AstraZeneca inoculation has now been discontinued. People are no longer allowed to get it. And so there's no nuance in just labeling people. we can have a discussion and we can argue and we can concede that there are valid points on one side and valid points on another and so on. But these labels just don't work. The book purports to discuss conspiracy theories in a humorous way, but to me tries to cover similar travel observation territory to P.J. O'Rourke. And unfortunately, Mr. Joly is just not funny enough, and the result is a disappointing book.